I've been in the graphic design industry for well over 20 years, and the most common question I get from my clients is what makes a good logo design? So the first thing that we need to talk about is, what is logo design? To put it simply, a logo design is basically a symbol or an icon that represents a brand. But what makes a good logo? That's probably why you're here, right? And the first thing that makes a good logo is simplicity. Your logo does not need to elaborate on every little detail of your brand. So for example, we see McDonald's here. The McDonald's logo has nothing to do with selling burgers or food or even real estate, if you want to get technical. But instead, it's actually an icon that's representative of the brand. They took these golden arches from the history of McDonald's and turned it into the letter M, and now it's basically the symbolic meaning for the brand. And one of the reasons why you want to keep your logo simple is for better reproduction. When your logo is simple, it's easy for you to use it or put it on many different things. Now that can range from apparel, business cards, large billboards, or even tiny little pens. If your logo has too much detail, it's going to get lost, it's going to become confusing for your customers, and it's going to be harder for you to reproduce on a consistent basis. And just because you're in a certain industry doesn't mean that you need to have an exact literal definition or visual of what the brand or the service is. So for example, if you're in construction, you don't need to have hammer and nails. If you own a coffee shop, you don't need to have coffee beans or a cup of coffee. Starbucks uses a siren, and that has nothing to do with selling coffee products. Next, a good logo should have versatility. And this basically means that you can use it across the different mediums and sizes without losing any type of quality or legibility issues. Typically, you like to keep it to a 1-to-1 ratio. That's like the optimal, so that's like a square. And if it fits in a square, you're basically gonna let it work everywhere. Just like how the McDonald's logo, that arch, was in a square. But of course, this is not always the case, and there will be times that you need to create alternative lockups. So for example, right here, we have Rehab Spot. This is for a physical therapist, and you can see the primary is used as a horizontal lockup, and then the alternative is kind of like the vertical stacked version. So this primary horizontal over here can work when you have more like larger spaces, or when you have a different type of spot, you could use a different variation. This way it maximizes the size and things stay in proportion. Now, a timeless logo like the Coca-Cola logo is something that avoids design trends. You do want to design a logo that's going to look good right now in the present and in the future. And although that's easier said than done, there are a few things that you could stick to that will help you achieve this. Basically, geometric shapes and word marks or letters and characters are going to work well for you. Relevance is a big one when it comes to logo design. A good logo should align with your brand's values, it should align with the brand mission, and it should align with the type of target audience that you have. So for example, if you're in the healthcare industry and you're trying to target children, your brand should probably be a little bit more playful, whether that's with the colors, the typography, the messaging, things like that. You want it to feel like it belongs somewhere. Like imagine going to a hospital and the sign is in like bloody Dracula distorted fonts and things like that. You're not going to feel reassured because it doesn't feel appropriate. It doesn't feel like it's relevant to the industry. When you think of a healthcare industry, you think of professionalism, cleanliness, organization, or maybe it should be relevant to the type of theme that you're going for. In this example, my client is in the mental health space, and he wanted his brand to have a strong influence from 80s design, but making it look a little bit more modern. He wanted his brand to feel like it was a fun place, but also casually approachable, kind of shaking the stigma of mental health that it doesn't need to be the sterile environment like what a hospital is usually. And with this, you now have a more comfortable, confident, cozy feel, but also it's a place that you feel that you can go to without being judged. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me as a new YouTube channel way more than what you could imagine. I appreciate it so much, guys. back to the video. Now, uniqueness is a gigantic one that you need to balance very well, especially when you're trying to keep a logo simple. Having a unique element is what's going to help it stand out. So you do want to craft your logo to have some type of unique aspect to it so that you can stand out and differentiate yourselves from your competitors. Now, if we look at this Amazon example, they could have just had, okay, it's Amazon with an arrow. But they actually used about 2 different unique identifiers to make them unmistakably different from competitors. The first thing is that the letter A goes to Z, basically representing that Amazon can help their customers find anything from A to Z. And the second aspect is having that A to Z, the arrow, become a smile. And this smile has now become a cornerstone of their brand design. Now, going back to what I said about trying to make your logo look unique, when you try and do something like right on the nose, an exact definition of what it is that your company represents, what it sells, any type of service, the problem is that the majority of your competitors are basically doing the same thing. If you're a contractor, if you're a coffee place, if you're showing the same type of imagery that everyone else is showing, it's just going to make you look like someone else. And then it doesn't give you that edge. You can also make it unique by introducing good typography. And this also goes into relevance, because you want to select appropriate fonts that suit the personality and the tone of your brand. So for example, Walt Disney Pictures, the brand is known to be a family-friendly place. It's aimed at a lot of children and has a very wholesome approach. That's why using a more whimsical looking text or a rounded font makes it feel playful, makes it feel soft, makes it feel non-threatening. Now, a good rule of thumb is that serif typefaces make a brand feel more established and authoritative and professional, and a sans serif font is going to make your brand feel a little bit more modern and clean. And what's the difference between them? I'll show you real quick. You can actually take a look over here. You see pictures, right? This is a serif typeface. And the way that you can tell a serif typeface is by, it basically has little designs at the end of each of the characters. You can think of Times New Roman or the standard typeface or font that you would see when you pick up a book. A sans serif typeface is one that's being used on these slides right now. You can see over here, typography, select appropriate fonts. This is a sans serif typeface, and it's probably one of the more popular ones. Now, which one you choose will all depend on the brand personality and how you design it. But let's not forget about color, because this is actually one of the mistakes that I see happen very often, and that is jumping straight into designing with color before making your logo work in black and white. Your color should only be added once your logo works in black and white, because if you have it work in black and white, then that basically means there's a good foundation, and adding the color is just going to be the cherry on top that helps give it that extra personality and flavor to it. You do want to establish a color palette that's going to fit with the brand's tone. Now, in this example, the Barbie brand uses bright pinks, and that's meant to aim towards a female demographic, and it's meant to be a little bit more playful and youthful. Same thing, you can tell with the typeface that they're using here. It's round and bubbly, just like how we showed in the Walt Disney, but it also has a little bit of finesse to it at the ends. Not exact, it's like a serif, sans serif, because it's a rounded serif. And you can see that it gives it that little bit of extra luxury aspect to it. Now, there's a whole thing on color psychology, basically saying that brighter colors are a little bit more energetic and inviting, and it also largely depends on the culture that you come from. So, for example, in Western civilization, white is meant to be purity and black is meant to be death, but in other cultures, sometimes white is seen as death. Now, scalability plays into the versatility and the simplicity aspects that I mentioned earlier. Now, a good logo design is going to have scalability because you want it to be legible and clear when it's resized. And to do that, you want to avoid filters and design effects. This is basically going back into the timelessness aspect. You can see that all of these attributes are actually intertwined with each other. So a key aspect to scalability is making sure that it works at both smaller sizes and larger sizes. And this is why we avoid a lot of detail, because if you scale your logo down and now you can't read something or something is lost in the process, well, then it's not going to be consistent and it's not scalable and it's not a good logo. But when it comes to the technical aspect, you do want to make sure that you create your logo as a vector file. A vector file can end in SVG, .ai, .pdf, .eps. These are the source files that a logo would be created in. And basically, when you think of a vector file, it means that the design itself, the graphic, is created based on mathematical plotted points. So in Adobe Illustrator, you actually have your logo created on points, and this is going to ensure that whenever you blow the logo up to like 100 feet, you're not losing any quality because it's a mathematical formula. A program like Adobe Photoshop is not meant to create logos in, and that's because those types of files are flat rendered images. All right, I figured I'd just pull this up real quick and kind of show you. We're inside Adobe Illustrator right now, and if you're a little confused about what those vector points are, let me show you. So you see how all these little dots appeared? These actually control where everything goes. So when you're looking at a logo, you can see here, I could round the corners on things like that. But when you scale this up, down, anything like that, these will always stay consistent. And of course, a good logo should be memorable. Now, the best logos are easily recalled, and this creates a stronger brand presence. So for example, the Apple logo is extremely memorable because it's very simplistic and follows all the other characteristics that we just covered. Not only that, but it's been advertised a hell of a lot. And the goal here is to have your customers recall your logo as easy as possible. And there's a few different studies as to why you would want that. Basically, all the data shows that the easier a consumer can recall your logo, the more likely they are to become comfortable with your brand, which is going to lead them to purchase your products, which leads you to making money. I think the number is something like an increased revenue of up to like 23%, which if you're dealing with millions and billions of dollars is a lot of money. But remember that a good logo is only half the battle, because a logo design alone is not going to be the magic fix. Because your logo isn't your brand, it's the entry point to your brand. There have been studies that show that 60% of people will avoid a company with a bad logo design, even if they've heard good things about them. And that is a statistic that I do not want to gamble with. And even though people say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, how do you know to pick up that book and read it unless you're initially attracted to it? So we have simplicity, versatility, timelessness, relevance, uniqueness, good typography, strong color palette, scalability, and memorability. That's it for me. If you have any other questions that you want to know about logo design, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Let me know what other type of content you want to know. And if you need any help or anything like that, just check the description and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.